Good morning. I am joined by Mayor Brandon Scott, Chief Melissa Hyde of the Baltimore County Police Department, U.S. Marshal Chief Snyder, Consent Decree Monitor Ken Thompson, Representative from the State's Attorney's Office Jan Bledsoe, and Dr. Scalera from Shock Trauma. This morning, shortly after 8 o'clock a.m., Baltimore Police Department detectives assigned to the U.S. Marshals Warrant Apprehension Task Force were looking for a vehicle and a suspect wanted in reference to a homicide that occurred in Baltimore City on June 19th. What we know right now is that officers observed the targeted vehicle and suspect in the 6100 block of Security Boulevard in Baltimore County in the parking lot and attempted to approach the vehicle. It was at that time the suspect exited the vehicle and fired multiple rounds at officers, striking 2 Baltimore City detectives. Multiple officers returned fire, striking the suspect. That suspect was transported to an area hospital where he has now succumbed to his injuries. 2 detectives were transported to the University of Maryland Shock Trauma, suffering from gunshot wounds. We have visited with those officers and their families in person, and we are relieved to say that at this time the 2 officers are in stable condition. Dr. Scalera will speak more to that in a minute. This incident is an ongoing police-involved shooting investigation, and the criminal investigation is being handled by the Baltimore County Police Department, and our Special Investigations Response Team is investigating the police-involved shooting incident. We can now confirm the suspect is a 32-year-old male who was wanted on a murder and a handgun warrant. Our officers and our marshals were out doing exactly what the people of Baltimore want us doing. That is pursuing violent offenders. Our prayers are with the officers for their full and speedy recovery. This time I turn it over to our mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. First, I am deeply thankful that both the officers are alert and upbeat, and I wish them a full and speedy recovery and ask that you pray for their families and all that are impacted by this incident. Building a safer Baltimore requires us to hold violent offenders accountable. Our Warrant Apprehension Task Force goes out each and every day attempting to apprehend those who cowardly commit violence on our streets and bring them to justice so that these families and communities can begin to heal. We want to thank them for their service, and families can find some comfort and justice as the process begins when they do their work of bringing these folks in. Today, these officers were doing just that, trying to apprehend someone for a murder committed less than a month ago on the streets of Baltimore. The WATF will continue to aggressively track down those who commit violence on our streets, and they will continue to send a clear message, as they do bravely each and every day, that we will not allow folks to think that they're going to get away with harming people on the streets of Baltimore. We want to again thank them for the work, ask you that you pray for all the families and everyone impacted by this incident, because this is something that should not happen, but we know that the great and brave women and men of the WATF will continue to do that work to hold people in Baltimore who commit violence accountable. Thank you.
Good morning. We get to do this again, I guess. This morning, between 8 and 8:30, we were informed that several officers were incoming. Both were seriously ill when they arrived. As the commissioner has told you, we were able to get them stabilized. I'm happy to say that. They are undergoing the remainder of their evaluation. Both will require some therapy. The exact nature of that will be determined by the remainder of their evaluation process. We expect both of them to survive, and we will go from there.
So once again, our thoughts and prayers are with our officers that they make a speedy recovery and their families. And what we saw today was exactly what officers go through. These are the most dangerous situations imaginable, but they did their job with bravery, with courage, and with professionalism. We have our consent decree monitors here to make sure that all of these incidents and everything that happened is reported to the court, as we will be meeting with the court on Friday. But at this time, I'll take a few questions.
Can you tell us more about the original homicide that the suspect is linked to? June 19th?
Well, what we are reporting now is that it's a homicide that occurred on June 19th. It wasn't long thereafter before we actually had a warrant for that person, and our officers were out, and I can't go into any further about the homicide itself. But they were pursuing this individual, and they had information that led them to Baltimore County, and they were doing their jobs when they were fired upon and were struck, and now that person has now succumbed to his injuries.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right,
Guys.
thank you all.
The homicide location was 1000 block of West Landville.